We've got Carsten Brzeski, senior economist at ING, joining us live from Brussels. Carsten, I first of all want to ask you about Moody's statement here that the accord from the European leaders isn't going to be enough to improve the outlook for its ratings.
I must say I do not fully agree, because if you look to the medium term, the agreement from last week really will make Eurozone debt more sustainable. A debt break, a balanced budget amendment, this will really help getting the countries back on a sustainable footing. Of course, for the short term, we haven't seen a lot, which means in the short term, no country is rescued, has been rescued so far.
So, not definitive. It didn't save the euro, not yet anyway.
No, it didn't, but I think it's almost impossible to save the euro, at least from the politician's point of view. To really save the euro, we would need a big bazooka and the ECB on board.
So, they have announced details of the firewall, the funds that are expected to protect Italy and Spain, but there are problems with this as well. Take us through those.
Of course, the first thing is we still have this ongoing EFSF with a leverage option where politicians still think it's going to work. I don't think it is. Then we have the new European stability mechanism, which will be introduced earlier, but these two together will only have a firepower of maximum 500 billion euro. Then on top of that, central banks will increase their contributions to the IMF, another 150, 200 billion euro, which means we're up at 700 billion euro. This would not be enough to save Spain and Italy.
So they need the ECB, but the ECB hasn't agreed to buy more bonds at this stage. What's next for that institution?
This, of course, means that there will be uncertainty and volatility in markets. And I think probably in a couple of weeks or at some point in time, the ECB will have to say that it's going to do more. I think the ECB, in connection with this European stability mechanism, so with a political institution that can ensure moral hazard, this could work, and this could really be the big firewall, the big bazooka the Eurozone needs.
But when it comes to the actual fiscal compact that the 17 euro nations and perhaps more agreed to last week, where are the big holes that you see with it? Because, of course, there's a lot of detail to be worked out on how it's going to be implemented, for example.
I think the big hole, for example, is about this automatic sanctions. So they now talk about automatic sanctions, but the big question is, what are these automatic sanctions? Is it really to expose a country from the Eurozone? Is it just some procedural, is it just a fine? So I think this is still very unclear. And if you really look at it, we also see that countries do not lose a lot of sovereignty. So we've all talked about fiscal union being that you delegate national sovereignty to a European level, and what we saw last week only means at maximum that the sinner countries will lose sovereignty. But for the rest, I think there's still too little to really talk about a fiscal union.
So is it going to be enough for markets? What do you predict is going to happen in the coming weeks?
I think that the volatility, uncertainty will remain. For markets, this is too much medium term. Improving fiscal sustainability over the medium term will not be enough. Markets are looking whether the ECB will come across the bridge and will do more. I think this is key here. If the ECB says they're going to do more, then markets can calm down. If not, the volatility will continue going into 2012.
Once again, down to the ECB. Carsten Brzeski, senior economist at ING. Thanks very much for being with us from Brussels there.